Hey everyone, welcome back to our On the Money YouTube channel powered by Allied Wealth. Matt Stevenson here. And today I wanted to pose an important question that I'm getting a lot of feedback on today, and that is whether the dollar will remain the dominant global reserve currency in these years to come. Now, with the US dollar and the US economy, we've enjoyed a special status for many decades now as the world leader, not only in our economy, but being able to rely on our currency as the most stable currency out there in the world today. And there's a lot of information and news out there that this might be threatened by things like the Chinese Yuan or the yen or the euro. And in response to that, I wanted to share a bit more insight, perhaps to talk about these concerns, but give us some confidence in our status with the dollar. Now, the first thing that I think about is the dollar as that legal reserve across the world today. And we can take a look at that in percentages for a moment. And this is actually going back over the last decade. There we see the top line represents the percentage of global reserves accounted for by the US dollar. And throughout that time, it's kind of ebbed and flowed between about 60%, maybe up to 65%, currently sitting just shy of 60% of all global reserves. But the case in point is that number has remained fairly stable over the last 10 years. Even if we were to go back much, much longer than that, over 20, 30, 40 years, that number hasn't changed that much. And especially when we compare that to other currencies out there, the next closest competitor as far as global reserves is in fact the euro, at about 1/3 the reserve of what the US dollar accounts for. And that's an astonishing difference between our US dollar as the reserve currency and the next closest currency that might pose a threat and competition. Now, again, we're hearing a lot about things like the Chinese Yuan and the Chinese economy is growing rapidly. Can the yuan overtake the dollar's status as that global currency? Well, I know it's kind of buried in here, but in fact, the Chinese yuan only accounts for about 5% or less of all global reserves. So it would take a huge economic shift over many, many years, perhaps decades, for that number to shift substantially. So that gives us some confidence. The other thing I think about is the stability of the value of the dollar. Now, again, we see a lot of news about the dollar weakening, and certainly inflation has impacted a lot. A carton of eggs at the grocery store costs a lot more now than it did a couple of years ago, that's to be sure. But if we think about exchange rates between the dollar and most other major currencies, again, over really 20 plus years in this chart, those numbers have remained relatively stable throughout the course of time, which is remarkable. And so what we've seen over the last couple of years throughout the pandemic and all these disruptions is, as with any time frame, the value of our currency and any currency will ebb and flow. But compared to most all other currencies, the dollar has actually gotten stronger in recent years, which again gives us some confidence in where we sit. Now, there's always been this threat of, well, what if, other world entities like OPEC dealing with the oil trade stop trading with the US dollar? Or what if other countries just decide we're going to use another basket of currencies and stop using the dollar altogether? While that may be possible, check out this article. So this was actually from May, the middle of May, and it's detailing the possibility of OPEC cutting off their link with the US dollar. And while it's not pictured here, this article is from May 22nd of 1974. So a lot of these news articles and these thoughts have been present in the news cycle for decades and decades, yet nothing substantial has really come of it. And there's a lot of reasons why that is. You know, over the past 20 years, for example, the US dollar has been involved in well over 3/4 of all financial transactions across the world today, and that makes it by far the most traded currency. There's a lot of reasons for this. The dollar has a lot of liquidity to it, meaning it's easy to trade and convert into other currencies at the drop of a hat. As we saw a moment ago, it also remained remarkably stable compared to other currencies around the globe. And the fact of the matter is, if other countries were to trade in other currencies, they'd lose their largest consumer base. The US has 1/4 of all gross domestic product even now today. And so you risk losing your biggest customer base if you trade in other currencies. And so all these things compound to say, based on where we are right now, things could change down the road, but the US dollar still remains in excellent place compared to its competitors across the world. Folks, I hope this goes a long way to ease some of your concerns about the US dollar, and this is just one of the main questions that we get as far as your finances and building your retirement plan. If you have more questions, feel free to like this video and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more content to come. We'll see you soon.